I've been up since 4:30 this morning. You're lucky I'm wearing a shirt. And good morning. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I'm residential sales manager, associate broker, ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 162. And a little light screen, so I'm assuming we're recording. How y'all doing today? Well, like the teaser said, I was up at 4:30 this morning because SpaceX, for some god-awful reason, always has to launch in the morning. And it was their third launch of their Starship, Starship 23 with Booster 10. Decided to try it again, and no boom. Well, at least no boom that was recorded by camera. I was rather disappointed in it. Not that I want to watch them blow up and stuff like that, but it is sort of cool. But tradition at the Dawson household, it's so funny. A couple of years ago, I mentioned that, I'd like to live in a future where I pay as much attention to the landing of a Falcon rocket as I do the Southwest Flight 397 coming in from Dallas, and we hit that point a couple of years ago. I mean, SpaceX is always, launching things. I want to say that they did like over 50 last year, and they're on track to do about 100 this year. So that's like one every 3 days. And those are reusable rockets. They turn those things around like school buses. So, but you can't call the spaceship a school bus, right? Because, it is still in the design phase. And it's a really interesting, different dynamic. NASA, they built rockets like ammunition. One shot, one kill, nothing reusable until they got to the space shuttle. The space shuttle was originally designed to be 100% reusable, and the best they could get was the boosters and the shuttle itself, and they had to have a fuel tank that was disposable, and they just drop it into the ocean when they were done with it. SpaceX, with their system, they want everything. They're even recovering the little parts, the fairings that fly off the sides between the first and second stages, and they're trying to get those things refurbished. So, and they have a really, really high op tempo. But they also have the design of build it, fly it till it crashes, build another one, and that's what they've been doing. They got first and second stage separation this time, which is awesome. That's was their problem, I believe, with the last two, or at least their last one. It was a separation issue on that, where something did not fire when it was supposed to fire, and they had to self-destruct it. In this particular case, that separation went really well. It sounds like they just rewrote the procedure, and they're doing a hot staging where they will actually start firing the engines in this, in the second stage, the Starship itself, before the boosters cut away. And then they try to land the booster. Booster, you could tell, wasn't going to land about 10 seconds before it lost the signal. It started getting the shimmies really bad. And anybody who has ever driven on icy roads, who was wound up in the ditch, knows what happens when you get the shimmies going. You get that overcorrection going on, and you can watch, and I spent half the time looking at the rocket and the other half looking at the bottom of the screen where they're showing all the telemetry, with the Starship itself, when I saw, because they had an attitude pitch on that thing, and you're watching it do the reentry, and when it swung like this, and then swung like that, and then swung like that, I went, okay, it's going in. So human beings overcorrect when we're steering, all right? If those of you who went to driver's ed, they always caution you about overcorrecting when you get into a skid. With spaceships, the computers are doing that, but sometimes the physics and the math just, you're not going to recover. Whatever is going on with whatever caused it, the wing, the fairing, whatever was causing that oscillation was always going to be there. And when you're driving a car, if you get into a slid because you hit an ice patch, if you're on the other side of the ice patch, you have an ability to recover, okay? But when the wing flies off, you're going to have a bad day. So, and I'm telling you that to tell you this, all right? Our interest rates in our market right now, we're starting to settle down. Okay, so I mentioned this to somebody this weekend who was saying, oh yeah, I know some buyers, but they're all waiting for the crash to happen so they can buy at the bottom. All right. My response to you guys now is that was November. All right. Let's look at the numbers right now, and then I will go into greater details on this. But are we oscillating right now? I think we are. So let's talk about our oscillations. All right. And these are the numbers for May 14th, Pi Day 2024. March 14th, 3/14. All right, actives this week are 16,605, up 179 from the previous week. Our new listings were 2,225, down 142. Our contracts are 2,505, which is actually down 57 from last week. And we had total closings of 1,430. Coming soon to an MLS near you is 840 new listings. Now, our supply numbers from the Crawford report down here is 69. Nice round 69. No jokes from the peanut gallery. All right, our demand here is 79.6, and we had a Crawford report number of 115.4, which is trending down. Let's look at the cities, and this looks like a crime scene right here. Look at all that red. We actually have more cities in red, meaning trending down, than we have green trending up. All right, leading the pack, of course, is Chandler, okay, up 6% from last month, even though if you look at the numbers, all right, it's percentage. That makes all the sense in the world. So, all right, we're 206, in Chandler, still trending up from last month, but Gilbert's come down 3. They're at 177.1. Glendale is going up, 2 at 177. Glendale will probably pass Gilbert at this rate. Fountain Hills still trending down at 165.4, but then Mesa, Phoenix, Tempe, Avondale, everything's headed up on there, okay, with Mesa cranking a 20% increase month over month, which is awesome because I have a listing coming out in Mesa next month, and next week, and I'm going to be leveraging that really hard in negotiations. Meanwhile, we got Scottsdale, Peoria, Cave Creek, Paradise Valley, and Surprise all trending down, all right, with Cave Creek, Paradise Valley, and Surprise all being balanced markets, joined by Queen Creek. I think I remember saying sometime last week that they were going to be we were going to see Queen Creek become a balanced market. There they are, just sneaking in at the bottom. Goodyear has actually dropped out of a balanced market from last month, and they are down 14% month over month, 80.1. Maricopa and Buckeye leads out the bottom, with Maricopa gaining 3% and Buckeye still falling at negative 7%. So, if I was to throw these things up on a map for you, there's one thing you'd really notice. East side seems to be doing better than west side. All right, Chandler, Gilbert, all right. Glendale is the outlier. Glendale's funny, okay? But Mesa, Phoenix, Tempe, Avondale, okay? Avondale we could also call an outlier. But, where are our biggest losers? Buckeye, Maricopa, Goodyear, all right. Maricopa's on the far south of the valley. Buckeye and Goodyear, southwest side, so let's keep an eye out on these things. Surprise down. So definitely east side seems to be doing. I haven't heard any news about any big builds, any of these superconductor factories, chip plants going in on the east side. Maybe that's just where the market is right now because everything else is filled up. So, but talking about corrections, I'm talking about potential overcorrecting, all right? Or, like I said, I'm watching the telemetry. All right, I'm watching speed, I'm watching acceleration, I'm watching pitch and yaw, all that kind of stuff because I'm a numbers guy, and I can tell when that thing is having a problem before the announcer says lost the signal or whatever. I don't need the screen to tell me that. So as I sit here and I watch these videos and everything like that, and this launch, you start seeing that little shimmy and stuff like that, and you start seeing the aileron really try to over-adjust. And we're getting a wobble here, all right? Let me tell you about our little wobble, all right? One, our Fed's favored inflation measure is in line with forecasts. That's really good, okay? But then the Fed says something, all right, that sort of threw everybody off, all right? And what was said, Fed Chair Jerome Powell has stressed is committed to returning inflation to 2% over time. All right, and they also said that they won't wait to get to 2% to cut rates, all right? The new word on the street is that they're not even talking about 2% this year inflation, all right? They're talking that they might be able to get it to 2% in the next 4 or 5 years, all right? So it almost sounds like they're baking in higher than targeted inflation into the cake for the next 4 or 5 years, all right? This is, of course, going to have an impact on your interest rates in the long run. So We still might get a rate drop this year. Okay, if a rate drop happens, it would be throwing some gas on this fire that we got going on, and you'd see our numbers all start shaking up. But if you're trying to correct because you're anticipating going into an deflationary spiral, all right, and you give it a little bit of gas, that could be the equivalent of hitting the gas when you are driving your car on an ice patch. Sometimes that's good if in a front wheel drive, sometimes that's bad in a rear wheel drive, depending on the situation. This is the oscillations I'm starting to get concerned about. New home sales jumped in January. That's good. All right, and home values continue to move higher. That's good for some, bad for others. But then we look at our employment rate figures, and this is another little bit of telemetry we got to look at. All right, unemployment claims rise during the latest week. All right, and this latest reading is the second highest since November 2021. All right, and so these numbers off the top. All right, they rose by 13,000 last week. All right, as 215,000 initial jobless claims were filed. Continuing claims, though, rose 45%, all right, with 1.9 million people still receiving benefits after filing their initial claim, all right? So you're always going to have churn. You're always going to have employees, companies are always going to die out, whatever. Bob in accounting needs to get fired because he keeps, doing weird things to Gladys when she walks by him on the way to the copier, those kind of things, all right? So you're always going to have people filing unemployment. Right. The concern is when that starts building up, right? 45,000 extra people staying on unemployment longer than expected. That's a trend that starts build, almost like our federal debt. It's not supposed to keep getting bigger. All right. So let's keep a track on that. All right. Because rising unemployment, all right, and a slowing economy means you want to goose it. Give it a little bit of gas, all right, build it back up. But if you're trying to get that inflation down, now you're going to have a bad time because you don't want inflation to go squampus because you just pumped even more money into the economy that we've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. So last week, I took my little minions, my little trainees, and I sat them in front of me and said, guys, last December, just 3 short months ago, I thought we were going to go look into a really, really good year. All right, told you guys to get all ready for it. First couple weeks of January, it looks like we're going into that. Then the interest rates started going in the other direction. The Fed starts monkeying around with things. All right. Inventory is still low. All right. Going back to our Comfort Report numbers. All right. We should have a base 100. And a base 100 on these things would be the normal amount of houses for sale for our population. And 100 there would be the normal amount of buyers trying to find those. Right, we see supply tricking up, we see demand tricking up, but they're slowly moving towards that 100. So our market is still slow here, and I don't think we're going to have the interest rate change that we need, that we want to see, that will help both buyers and sellers come in the rest of this year at the rate that we want to see it. Me personally, and my escrow officer friends, and all the other people I know whose life is, our income is based on the real estate market. There was a continuation last week from the meme check where I was telling you about the millennials, and it's like, hey, this is the problem, right? And I, broke that down a little bit. Well, I saw another one the day after I recorded, all right? Pretty much the same metrics. And then yet Tuesday, a video came across from a lender and a couple real estate agents who are actually coming up with a program, realizing that the millennials, in a lot of cases, have not been trained by anybody. Apparently the how to buy a home class was taught at the same time in high school as how to balance your checkbook, start up a 401k, and pay your taxes class. All right. Apparently everybody in the world missed that class because I know our teachers and they care about their children and they wanted to make sure their children have the best future possible. So they teach them important skill sets like how to budget your money. We all know this. Don't believe me? Ask them. They care about your children. That's why they teach them important life skills like budgeting. All right. So they gave us the class. All right. We all missed it. All right. So these guys are actually sitting there trying to start a class, with online training material and teachers teaching aids for high school and college to teach kids in a very short workshop. This is how you actually buy a house. Now, obviously, these kids could benefit from watching Ray's YouTube channel every week, but obviously you can't do that with children in my vocabulary and my preferred adjectives and adverbs. All right, so we'll let these guys handle it. I think it's a really credible idea. They were actually looking for ambassadors to help teach these classes, and they were looking to get 1,000 ambassadors throughout the country. Sounds like a great idea. And then they said, and we'd really love to have, I think it's like a $200 a month donation to be an ambassador. So it's a marketing scheme. But it's a needed, it's a needed service to our economy right now. I mean, it's a needed service to our young people. Just watching, it's so sad if you were over the age of 50, if you were over the age of 45, and you ever cross these kids these days, they just don't know how easy it is. And back in my day, I bought a house, it's 18% interest. Find one of these memes and just read through the comments and look at the new normal that the millennials and Zoomers are living in right now, right? One, they were lied to by their guidance counselors, right? A lot of them have degrees that are completely worthless. Seriously, they will tell you that, right? That kid is not working at the coffee shop, all right, because they wanted to go get a 4-year degree, all right, and wind up working in a coffee shop. Is because some adult told them, oh, any degree is good. As long as you have that degree, you are good to go. All right. So they got lied straight off to on that. All right. And then they were told, oh, don't worry about this huge amount of school debt that you're taking on. All right. Because your job will pay that off. Now, that being said, bad mistakes happen. People do really, really bad things and pick really, really bad degrees. All right. Funny joke I saw the other day was, I have a master's degree in Egyptology. I cannot get a job in Egyptology because all of those jobs are filled. So now I have to get a doctorate degree so I can teach other people Egyptology. And commenter came in and said, you are literally in a pyramid scheme. Ba-dum-bum. Right? That's part of the problem. Is another thing I saw this week is the wage difference between a bachelor's degree and a master's degree equates to something along the lines of, I want to say, an additional $20,000 a year, 2 to 3 years of your education like that. But you'll get another $20,000 a year, according to the statistics, with the difference between a master's and a bachelor's. Right? You're also going to pay $60,000 for that. So it's like your return on investment, it'd be 3 years before that degree pays itself off. And that's not counting the fact that you are now 2 years behind, 2 to 3 years behind work experience. All right. So this all comes around to, we have this huge tranche of millennials who should be buying their first homes right now. They are not buying their first homes right now because they can't afford the mortgage rates. And yeah, I think we've worked out the numbers. As long as interest rates are at 7%, okay, a lot of these guys are not going to be able to make the monthly rate. All right. We've also covered the fact that starter homes are fewer and farther between. Right. Starter homes are not $75,000 houses anymore. They're $425,000 houses. Right. But that mortgage payment is much, much more adjusted for inflation than it was back in 1992. Right. We went all of this in episode, 162 prior to this, or 161 prior to this. All right. And the other thing is, a lot, some of it is actually the buyers themselves, and they were looking and expecting mom and dad's house because they never lived with mom and dad when mom and dad were in the 2-bedroom, 2-bath. All right. So let's not say that they have a problem. All right. Let's figure out how we can get them out of the problem. Getting on that escalator is trust me, I have a lot of friends nowadays over 65, homeowners and permanent tenants. They're having a completely different life. All right. watching that happen. We had a little household drama at my house this weekend. Hot water heater. I decided to deadline it. All right, because one, the pilot light wouldn't stay lit, and two, the pilot light wouldn't stay lit because of the unusual amount of moisture around the burner and the rust buildup at the bottom of the tank. I think we did pretty good. We got 6 years out of a 2-year tank. But that means we're not looking at hot water. So I called the guy up. 77 years old plumber, worked as a plumber for 40 years. His son is a hydrological engineer right now. His son got his first job with his first engineering degree because he had worked with his dad as a plumber. Right? Degree plus life experience. Walks into there, it's like, this is great. We will hire you right now because it is so hard to teach engineers how to be plumbers, and you got it both already. So it's just, in their house, they're retired, and they're living a great lifestyle between a plumber and a hairstylist. Right? That was the American dream. That is the American dream. How do we get back to that? Well, take a look at how much plumbers are making right now, and let's start getting more kids into the trades. All right? We literally have a surplus of people, with degrees out there looking for a minimum amount of jobs. We did not need that many Egyptologists. So let's keep an eye on that. Oh, and last thing while I'm along these lines, and I did not mean to go in this direction, but I'm tired. This is like my third cup of coffee. Mike Rowe, who everybody knows I'm a big fanboy of, had a commercial on for submarine manufacturing companies. I assume it's an electric boat out of Connecticut. They were literally advertising for, we will train you how to build submarines. Trust me, if you learn the skill sets to build a submarine, you will have a job for the rest of your life. All right? They do not have enough people for those very, very technically competent jobs. They do not have enough people out there who can fill those, and that is literally something you can learn OJT. All right, so if you guys are sitting there and you got that like freaking 23-year-old floating around your house, or you're a 23-year-old and you want to get out from mom and dad, call these guys up. I'll find the link and I'll put it in the show notes below because, you got to live in New England, but still, all right. Let's take another. Where do those ships get refurbished? All right, same skill set. All right, so we're talking Bremerton. We're talking Newport News, and I think we're talking Pearl Harbor. And maybe occasionally get to fly out to Japan and Guam. See the world, and see the world in the best way, not in the military, but as a civilian contractor. All right. And while you're out there working as a civilian contractor, of course, you're going to, be, watching your children, pets around the water. You're not going to be driving anything flooded. All right? You're going to be working your circles, and you guys have a great weekend, and I am out of here.